Now, you know when you're good.
All right.
Cool. All
Okay.
right, Scott, we're off and running, man. Thanks for making this happen.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's funny asking a pilot to talk about being a pilot is usually about the easiest thing you could do.
I've got I know two pilots. One flew in the one flew in the Air Force. He's out and now he's a pilot for Alaska Airlines.
Okay.
And I've got a buddy of mine who flew a career in the Air Force doing C-130s. And he doesn't fly at all anymore, but I actually grabbed dinner with him the other night. So the only two pilots that I know.
Okay.
But I'm curious to kind of pick your brain and learn about that as well. But it sounds like you're married with three kids, and is one of your children following your footsteps?
Somewhat. Yeah. So my son, my oldest son, he's 23. He's married now. He's in the Air Force ROTC program, and I fought very hard to try not to push him in a direction. I let him know that, hey, if this is something that you wanted to do, you need to know that it's for you and not for me.
Mm.
Obviously, I'll be proud, no matter what you do. And he wants to, wear the uniform and serve his country, and I'm very happy with that. But if he ends up not flying airplanes, then I have to be okay with that. And I told him that. I said it's too hard to do, and it's too hard to put the work in to make that happen, and not think that you're doing it for you, and to think that he should
Mm.
do it just to make me happy. So
Is
he's
that the
going to
route he
be.
wants to go? Is he interested in aviation?
Somewhat. He's going to end. I think right now he's going the air battle manager route.
What is that?
That's like, I'm trying to think. If you saw the Transformer movie with the AWACS and the guy in the back,
No, but I know what an AWACS is.
and they kind of turned it into like the Top Gun of like the air battle manager part. That was like their moment of glory. So that's kind of the air battle manager, and what they do. And they maintain SA over the airspace, and help kind of manage the fight in that way.
It sounds like a stressful job.
Yeah, it certainly can be, and he's capable of it. So and I'm happy that he's doing something for him, and he's going to be successful in no matter what he does. But yeah,
You know, not to get us off topic already, and maybe this isn't an area that you know, but I mean, do you think the future of aviation warfare looks drastically different with drones and whatnot in the next 10 to 20 years?
I mean, yes and no, is because like in my lifetime and in my career, I saw so much effective use of drones and different things. Even the like I mentioned in the email that I sent you, I flew the E-11 that had, they call it the BACN payload, the Battlefield Airdrome Communication uh, Node. BACN. I just think they wanted to make a BACN acronym, so they threw it all
They
together.
made it happen one way or another.
Yeah. I mean, there's a version of that flies in the Global Hawk, like a very large, drone aircraft. And so there are things that you can do with that, where you could fly in perhaps some contested airspace that you wouldn't want to put a manned aircraft into. And so they've been doing that for a while, but it has yet to take the place of, manned aircraft. And,
Mm.
no matter how advanced the AI gets, no matter how fancy the software gets, there's just nothing that compares to a human being with judgment, and I think more important even than judgment is the empathy to make those judgments
Mm.
that robots can't do. And so I think that they will continue to have a place, and they'll continue to have a larger place, but I don't think we're going to get to the point in Star Wars where the droids fly all the warplanes.
So you spent a career flying in the Air Force, safe to
I
say.
did, yeah.
What does it take before we just start for people out there, maybe they've got a son or daughter interested? What does it take to become a pilot? Somebody's interested in, even that sounds like an amazing thing to do. What a great career. What does that actually entail?
Uh, well, I'll tell you what, it's definitely a worthwhile career, and it's something that I have found very rewarding. Some of the great honors of my career have been, with working with like-minded individuals, with supporting some of the brave snake eaters like yourself and the other guys back then that would do things on the ground. And it's a very rewarding career. Now, as far as what it takes to get into it, almost like anything else. Like if you want to be successful at something, you need to start with trying to be successful at whatever it is you're doing right now.
Mm,
I started because when I first started my career, I was a navigator. And when I found out that I got my navigator slot and not my pilot slot, there was a moment of like, oh wow, like this is a career-ending, soul-crushing, thing
mm,
happen. And so like I thought about it for a while and I was really upset. And when I tell the story, I was like, all right, I was going to give myself a day to be mad and to be sulky and to get mad at
sure.
the dog or whatever it is that you do, and then get to work at being a good nav because they would never let me be a good pilot unless I was a good nav at first. Like,
Fair enough.
and so you take that positive mental attitude into it. Like if you talk to my wife, it was more like you were sulky for like a week, not a day, but
Let's not split hairs.
yeah. But and that's like one of the stories I tell my kids is just like, look, like not everything's going to work out for you, and the timing's not always going to be there for you. But like
Mm,
if you
that's
work
true.
hard at what it is you're doing now, with an idea of what you want in the future, then that kind of leads and guides the choices that you make. And so you start to make a series of choices along the way while working hard at whatever it is that you're doing that are going to lead you to where you want to go. And so if this is a path that people want to take, just keep that in the back of your mind and start working hard. Like do your homework, like the basic stuff, like go to school, do your homework.
Don't flunk out of school.
Don't, yeah, no, yeah. What are they going to let you do if you do that? They're not going to let you fly those multi-million-dollar airplanes, right? So,
How
uh,
long is flight school?
in the Air Force, pilot training lasts a year.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Is it, 5 days a week, weekends off kind of a thing, or what's the schedule?
Sometimes not weekends off, but yeah, sometimes you're
Weekends
early
off so
go,
you can
sometimes
study.
you're late goes. Yeah, it was a very stressful year. It was a lot. So it's I'm not going to compare it to buds or anything, but
Oh no,
it's
it's I
just
mean,
like,
it's miserable in its own different, unique way.
yes, it is. And so like when you go home, like you're never really home. And it was just, I think my wife has described it as almost like she would prefer that I was deployed than
Mm,
the time I was in pilot training. Because in pilot training, I was home, but I could never really be home. And so that, I could not give a lot of myself to her and to like we had our two kids at the time that were very young. And that was challenging for everybody. And then eventually you have that date that you kind of set in the back of your mind, and you're like, hey, nothing they can do to me can last forever. And that date that's down the line, like that's going to come no matter
hmm
what I do. And I could either be standing up on a stage getting my wings,
100%. 100%.
or I could be greeting people at Walmart. Not that that's not
Correct.
honorable
No, I
either,
get
but
it. I 100% get it. Man, for those that haven't been in some sort of selection process or qualification course, whatever, the military has a unique way of just making something so unbearably stressful for so long and keeping you under the microscope of constant rigor and constant upcoming test and constant raising the bar. Like it's just a nerve-wracking, unless you've been in something like that. And
yeah,
when I had to do stuff like that, I didn't have any children. I can't imagine having to do that with a family, quite frankly. That sounds like
it was challenging.
unbearably difficult.
But you know what? At the same time, like it also provided a support structure.
Mm,
And so my wife understood what I was going through, and even though and in our way we were all going through it together, so it was challenging for all of us, uh, but I would argue that I couldn't have done it without her there.
yeah, well, that is true. And then in a weird way, you think that once you reach the end of that and you get your wings, it's over, but it's actually just probably just beginning.
Oh yeah, there's always there's it for you, you got sniper school or you got something, there's always
Right. There's
something else.
always something else.
There's another selection process and there's another training program that you're going to have to go through
You
where they're
can
going to be
never take your
watching.
foot off the gas.
Yeah, they're going to watch everything you do. You're going to be graded on everything you do and perform. And you can't let your guard down for a minute. You've got to prepare every day for like the next thing. And it gets stressful, but it's worthwhile too.
So let's walk through the different aircraft that you flew over the course of your career. How many different ones are we talking about?
Um,
Well, I
And
guess let's just start with the first one. What was the first one you hopped into?
all right, so like as a navigator, I flew what's called the RC-135, which is a intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance aircraft, and we would go signals intelligence, human intelligence, that kind of thing. Many deployments for enduring freedom and Iraqi freedom at the time when those were going on, Iraq, Afghanistan kind of thing. I did that for a few years and worked hard at it to be the best nav I could be, and then I was able to go to pilot training.
Mm.
Straight out of pilot training, I started dropping bombs out of a B-52. Hey, sport of kings. That was highly worthwhile, and for that kind of occupied most of my career for about 13 years or so.
Are B-52 still going strong? Or are they an
Oh
older
yeah,
aircraft that's kind of,
yeah.
oh, no
In
kidding.
fact, when I mean, there were posters that went up in my squadron when they announced the B-21, like it's going to be the new version of the B-2, essentially. They put that poster up of the B-21, and they said the next airplane that the B-52 will replace eventually. So, I mean, the aircraft that I was flying, they were in the they were built in the early '60s, but the plane was
Right.
designed in the early '50s. So it's just you've got these round dial steam gauges. I mean, there was a lot of technology in the bombs themselves and some of the things that we talk. When you start talking with the JTACs and those guys on the ground and dropping close air support and things like that, we had a lot of technology in that realm. But when you're flying, it's still like you step into that thing and you're like you think you're in a museum.
That's hilarious, but still just still doing the work.
Oh, and it's just, I mean, yeah, it's a Boeing aircraft. It's a heck of an airplane. It's iconic. Glad to have done it. Glad to be done with it. As I've kind of moved on to more aviation technology and have found, oh, this is nice. You mean I don't have to
I
do
bet,
this?
I bet, yeah.
They make fun of me in training sometimes when they're just like, yeah, and this is how it does this, and then the airplane does this, and my chin hits the table, and I'm like, and the airplane does this, and they're like, yeah, they all do, and I'm like, no, they do not.
No, not all of them.
No, they do not.
Flew
But
the
that's
B,
yeah.
you flew the
So
B-52, and then
yeah,
what?
during that time, I did. It's called the MC-12, which is a twin engine turboprop King Air 350.
Okay.
We've got a Mark 15 ball on the bottom where we could do laser targeting, but mainly it was to provide Overwatch, day and night Overwatch. We would do pattern of life sorties, several operations going after high value targets, and that was where I spent most of the time working directly with some of the boots on the ground, and both some of our forces, some of NATO forces, special operators, and just got a real appreciation for how those guys do business, and supported them from above, and then flew back to Bagram or Kandahar, wherever we were, and went to green beans coffee while those guys were out sleeping in their foxholes. So,
Yeah, yes. Uh, I'm curious, when you go from one aircraft to another, you obviously don't go to flight school, but like, can you just hop into any plane and fly it? Do you have to take like this mini refresher course? So how does that work?
you have to be qualified. So, like for the MC-12, for example, they send us to training at a place in Dallas where for about a month we get what they call type rated in the aircraft. So I'm type rated in the King Air 350. And then the deployment itself, it was going to be 6 months. It turned into 10 months. The Air Force and the military in general, they love to do that. Uh,
It never gets shorter.
no, no, they don't. It's always the other way.
Right.
Yeah, it's always the other way. So, like, cumulatively, I think I've spent over a year and a half of my life on the ground in Afghanistan. It's not, that can be a
Out
rough,
of
rough
curiosity,
neighborhood.
how does that how does that go delivering the message to the family of what was going to be 6 months is now 10?
That's funny that you asked that because when they told us that we were going to be extended, they were plussing up the ISR assets in the region, and they were like, "All right, so you're looking at probably an additional 3 months." I was actually about 7 days away from going home,
Oh, come on.
and I was
That's
just like,
cruel and
"Oh."
unusual
I,
punishment.
I had like my out processing checklist was halfway done, and I'm just like, "Oh no, like this isn't going to go well." So I was already a little bit down in the dumps, I guess. And then when I called, like at the time, like cell phones weren't necessarily a thing. we would go to the morale center and you would get 15 minutes doing a Department of Defense connection from one phone to the base, and then they would call your, your
Mm,
wife's phone at home. And so, like, I go to one of those things, and I called her on April 1st because that's when we were told,
perfect.
and she didn't believe me. And I'm just like, I was in no mood to have
Right.
her not believe me.
Right.
And so I was probably a little bit more terse than what she
Oh,
deserved. And I'm just like, listen, I'm not in the mood to joke. I'm not in the mood to have you not believe this. I'm not happy about it. So I'm gonna hang up the phone and I'll call you tomorrow and then we'll talk. She's like,
oh,
wait, what? Like, oh, you're serious? Like,
oh no.
and so she just does it like, like all good military spouses, men and women both. They just have this ability to flip a switch in their head where they're like, all right, I am taking care of business at home so that they can keep, harm at an arm's length distance
Yeah.
away from us. And that's how I would have to look at it. Like, I'm doing here to keep these guys busy so that they can't go home and otherwise, cause a ruckus there for my family and friends. So
Oh my goodness. God bless you for that. Okay, so you're in that aircraft, the MC-12 for a
right.
while.
So yeah, we
Um,
did that for about 10 months, and then I went back to the B-52 for a while, and then I had the opportunity to go do the E-11.
what's in the E-11? I've never heard of that in my
So
life.
that is it's not very well known, and it was shortly after what happened with the lone survivor and Michael Murphy. They said, hey, we need to do better with providing comm bridging assets.
Mm,
So they came up with this Bacon payload, battlefield aerodrome communications node. They put it in the back of an airplane. In this case, it's Bombardier's version of like a G5. It's very Gucci aircraft, and we would take off, go hang out in the mid 40s. We over not so friendly neighborhoods like Jalalabad and different places that highly mountainous terrain over there in Afghanistan, so that those operators never have to try to get expose themselves to get a line of sight comms.
mm,
And then the powers that be found out it did much more than that. We did data link bridging. Saddle is a system that the fighters used, and so like the F-16s in the south part of Afghanistan could talk to the F-16s on the north part of
mm,
Afghanistan, all with this system that we used. And so it became so immensely useful that it started, filling up these big battle screens with all this information. You know how generals love to have like all kinds of information up on their big battle screens, and so it became a highly sought after asset. And so we would take off and usually orbit for about 9 hours somewhere
I was curious how long you're on station for.
yeah, in
Nine
the
hours,
combat
huh?
space. And then someone would come and swap us out, and then we would swap the payload and well the electrons for the payload, obviously not the payload itself, but so yeah, they take care of that on the ground, and we swap it out, and we just make sure that whether it's boots on the ground that are out there doing what they need to, or whether it's data comm bridging with whatever operation might be going on. There was always an
All these
E-11.
aircraft that you've been on so far, these are relatively speaking larger aircraft, not like two-seaters. If you have to get up and use the restroom, you can do so.
The Bacon, yeah, had like a regular kind of like blue water type toilet. The MC-12, we had piddle packs.
Mm.
I've been familiar with those, but yeah,
I can get from context what it is.
basically they put there's these little gel things inside these piddle packs, and you make yellow snow cones essentially, and then throw them in a garbage, when you land after you get back.
So thus far, you've got at least one or two aircraft left, but you've had the B-52, the MC-12, and the E-11. Out of those three, what was your favorite?
Uh, for different reasons, like when you're all the coordination that it takes either on the ground and in the air to drop a laser guided bomb, from the B-52, for example, that like there's a lot of immense enjoyment that comes from that type of teamwork and that type of camaraderie. And there's just, it's, we're the best in the world at doing that, and bringing that type of weaponry to the fight. And so, I mean, that in and of itself is very rewarding. Technologically speaking, the E-11 was a blast. It was such a Gucci airplane, and it was such a vital mission, right? Like you went home and you felt good about what you did for
Mm.
America, but at the same time, like we were just going up there and orbiting. Like if I told you how much of my combat flying time consisted of like reading like Jack Reacher novels. Like
Right.
it's embarrassing, but it was, you know, it was wildly important what we were doing, and the aircraft itself was very technologically advanced, and I appreciated it a great deal. But as far as I think probably the most enjoyment that I had came from operating the E4.
Okay, so that's the next one, right?
Yeah, so that's the Doomsday plane. It's a modified 747, and so they call it, you know, the Queen of the Skies. It's another iconic airplane, you know, just like the B-52 is really, but it was an alert mission 24/7. Like we were always ready to take off at any given time. Whoever was on alert, that is. We did presidential support, so we follow the president around, be near him, not where he is. Secretary of Defense transport overseas. I had a wonderful opportunity to take Secretary James Mattis around the world a few times, and he is every bit the leader, the servant leader, you know, that you hear about, that you read about.
Hmm.
Fantastic human being. Like I have seen, he just so down to earth. Like he would, I have seen him personally come out of a meeting where he was meeting with the president and the Joint Chiefs in the skiff, and then come up to the cockpit and just chat with us. And just
That's
he
cool.
was that kind of guy, man. He was really something else.
And you did that for 5 years,
Yep, for five, and right up until I retired.
just flying all over the place.
Oh yeah, it was, and it, you know, it's fun, man. It was a, but again, it was like it's a 7.4, but it's a classic 7.4, so it's the same version as the current Air Force One, what they fly, the VC
Okay.
25. And so we would train kind of side by side with them initially, um, and then go do our thing. And that was wildly enjoyable and fulfilling. And it was just
Is it interesting? It sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the sort of job, like you said, you're on call, so you don't know really what your schedule is going to be. And then when you do take off, do you know when you'll be back?
sometimes there. So we would typically go on alert, and then we would stay out on alert with your team for anywhere from 1 week to 2 weeks, depending on the type of schedule that they were doing. And you know, then you would be off of that alert for, you know, 3 to 4 weeks, and so you were home. And so when
Gotcha.
you were on alert, like you wouldn't necessarily know how long you were staying in certain places, and sometimes you would plan to stay in certain places, and then the plan would change. It all depends. It's very weather dependent. We have to be ready to take off on a moment's notice, and so if there's, you know, heavy weather moving in, we can't hang out there. Uh, you know, we can't take the time to de-ice, for example. So if we've got icing coming in, we have to go someplace, which usually worked out pretty well. That means we hung out in like the warmer places.
Is it safe to say you don't get motion sickness?
No, typically not. But at the same time, it's just like when I'm in control, I don't. But there are
Mm.
times like where I don't know. You put me on the right like simulated 3D motion ride at Disney World or something like that, and like that'll tumble my gyros a little bit. So if I'm in
That's
control of
funny.
it, no problem.
I don't know if it's I've got older or what. I never handled that stuff exceptionally well, but I could tolerate it okay. But as I've got older, no. But I don't like it. Like it just it's not scary. I just get queasy, feel like I'm gonna puke. And I usually don't puke, but that puking feeling comes and it just
Yeah.
stays. It's just terrible. And I remember landing in I can't remember if it was Iraq or Afghanistan, but it was in a 130, and I'd never landed in a place like that before. And they just did like that corkscrew down to land,
Oh no, yeah, the combat arrival. That
and
no,
I
that
was unfamiliar with it, and that was absolutely miserable. I did not vomit, but I was absolutely miserable. I was like,
people have. Lots of
oh, I'm
people have done
sure.
that.
I was, that's probably the closest that I've ever been, and it was close. I was very glad just to get my feet on the ground and walk off the aircraft there, but.
if
So,
I had to spend a career in the back of a C-130, I never would have lasted.
but those fold down seats are so comfortable sitting inside.
Oh,
Um, so you left that and now you're flying in the civilian world, right?
that's right. Yeah. So like after and that, especially the E4, it was a competitive hire. I was very blessed to be able to get on there.
Okay.
You have to submit a package and interview and then be selected to go and do that.
Oh,
Especially
that's
when you're doing
cool.
like flying, the secretary.
Hmm.
Um, and so that was again very worthwhile, and it uh, set me up very well to be competitive for this next phase to get hired out in the civilian world.
Nice. Did you do 20 years on the dot or how long were you in the Air Force?
20 years and some change.
Okay. Okay, cool. And so the next chapter was what?
And so like I flew, so you start applying for the civilian world, right? And I flew 747s for a cargo company called Atlas.
Okay.
I did that for a brief stint until I just really waiting for FedEx to call, and that has always been kind of my end state goal. And so just again,
Wow.
like it kind of goes back to the first part of our conversation. It's just you make deliberate choices and you work hard at whatever it is you're doing, and then you go.
Why was FedEx the goal?
It's a very worthwhile company from a business standpoint. Their founder and CEO, who unfortunately passed actually a couple days ago, Fred Smith,
Oh,
on
really?
Saturday passed away, unfortunately. He started the company. He was a Marine officer, and so he was really, really big on what they called PSP, which stands for People Service Profits. And so their whole business philosophy, embedded into the DNA of their company, is take care of the people who work for you, who work
Hmm.
with you, so that they can provide excellent service to the customer, and that will in turn yield profit. But the profit is a byproduct of taking care of your people. So if you prioritize your people,
That's a pretty good system.
they will do the job, and then you everyone makes money. And so that's Fred Smith makes money, and then he gives some of his money to us, and that's just how it works.
That's cool.
And so that really appealed to me. And I read a book called The World on Time, which talks about how he kind of established that business and built it from square one, starting back in the 70s. And so I appreciated that. And then more than anything, you know people in the industry, and I know people who have flown for them, and the people that I've respected and looked after. And so you kind of seek, but ultimately, like I would have been happy with a number of different places. I've got friends with United, with American, with Delta, Southwest. You mentioned Alaskan. I've got a friend there. Alaskan is now merged with Hawaiian. I've got a
Hmm.
couple friends who fly for Hawaiian. Um, and so I think I would have been happy flying airplanes any given number of places. I was just very fortunate to kind of get my first pick.
Out of all this flying, is there like one or two scary moments that pop into your head that just give you the willies to this day and you're glad that they went in a good
It's
direction?
interesting. Like I've had certain combat related situations that stuff that kind of makes the hair stand up a little bit. But for the most part, like those situations have gone relatively well. Operations that have been, well planned and executed. Um, but like I was actually the scariest thing that happened in a B-52 actually was when we were going out on a normal training sortie, and weather was not good. This was coming out of Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana. We took off as a three B-52s, a three ship, just to go do some training. We're going to pretend to drop bombs at a range and then go hit a tanker for some air refueling and then come back and land. Well, things started going sideways. We lost our lead that had a major mechanical issue. And so we were number two. We became lead. So we went out and pretended to drop bombs. Weather was getting worse back at Barksdale. We hit the tanker. We got a little bit of extra gas from them. And then our instrumentation system that lets us do this instrument landing system, to come back to Barksdale, which for the B-52, that is as advanced as we get. So like once that kind of
Hmm.
goes down, we have to be able to see to land. And like that crumped out as we were trying to come back into Barksdale. So they diverted us all the way to Minot, North Dakota. And so it's the middle of February. By the time like we're up, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. We're bemoaning our fate, talking about, oh, I can't believe this. Like, it's cold. It's gonna be so cold up there, and like, yeah, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be miserable. Uh, but they kept telling us, hey, weather's awesome up there, because we told them, hey, our ILS is out. If we get up there and that's broke,
Mm.
like we're out of options. And they said, yeah, no problem. Weather's clearing a million. Weather's clearing a million. And then we get up there, and it's what the ice fog started rolling in, to the point where we tried, and like I'm really shortening this situation, but like we tried multiple times to land on this runway, to the point where we're like we could not see it. We'd get down in the absolute soup, where all you can,
Oh
like
my
you're
goodness.
inside 200 feet over the runway, and we can't see it. Tower told us, hey, we can hear you, but we can't see you. Like they couldn't see us from where they were. And so
No,
that was
thank
it.
you.
Like we climbed up a little bit, and we're like, all right, fellas, this is it. We were out of gas, absolutely out of gas, and we had less than 10 minutes of flying fuel left at that point.
Really? Less than Oh,
And so there's five of us on board. We had two pilots, an electronic warfare officer, and then a radar navigator and a navigator that sit kind of downstairs. Um, and we're like, all right, this is it, guys. We're gonna
this
eject.
is not a ejection style aircraft.
It is like you can
Oh, it
eject from a
is.
B-52, yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, okay.
yeah. So the pilots and the electronic warfare officer go up, and then the navigator and the radar navigator go down.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so we're like, all right,
But
guys, like,
nobody wants to do that.
no, like especially at 2 o'clock in the morning in the middle of February at Minot, North Dakota, like you're gonna freeze your you know what off, and like it's just like now all of a sudden I'm like, all right, this is not like I did not want to do this evening, and so that was like the one time in my career where I knew I was gonna eject. The ejection seat has always been kind of like a security blanket where you're just like you're glad it's there, and you know you're happy that you've got a way to get out in case something bad happens.
But it's
But
supposed to be like a horrifically violent experience,
oh yeah,
correct?
this was going to be what's called a controlled bailout, and so we were going to come back in over the field, and then we were going to eject immediately over the field, because the problem was that like if we had ejected and landed in Farmer Bob's field, or 10 miles away from nobody, like all we had were our flight suits. We didn't have Arctic
Mm.
survival gear on. We had nothing. We would die from exposure. And so we were going to fly over the field. We were going to eject and try to land on the Air Force Base. So we were in the process of doing that, and they sent us down to Minot International, which is not it. We're not qualified to be able to land at that airfield because the runway's too short and it's too narrow for a
But you get no
B-52.
gas.
But now you need a piece of concrete. You're like, we've got to put something down, and so we were able to get down there, and like there's a special procedure that we're able to use with help with our radar navigator, where we were able to get down, get on the runway, and stopped. And to this day, no one has ever landed a B-52 with less gas than, than what we than what we had. And
Oh my.
immediately, like shortly after we landed, like if you looked out and like you could not see the end of the wing from the cockpit, like the fog had moved in. So if it had delayed even 30 to 60 more seconds, like we wouldn't have been able to land there either. And so that was fairly,
And anything, there's more things in that situation that can go wrong than right. Like so
yes.
in that situation, are you texting your wife and being like, "Hey, strange day at work. Try to hit you later if I can. Don't know if I'll be able to. Say hi to the kids."
That I mean that happened after we landed, and we kind of got set up in the hotel room on base. But at the time, you're just you've got adrenaline, but you don't realize you've got adrenaline. And so
Yeah.
you just everyone's doing what they're trained to do. Let's do this. Okay, hey, I'm looking up. Hey, this is what the runway's going to look like. This is what they have available. This is what they have for lighting. They don't
Isn't it
have the type of approach
amazing?
that we need, but we're going to do this. And then then all of a sudden you land. And what I remember pretty well is like we took about 30 seconds to kind of just some deep breathing exercises. And then we're like, all right, I guess we do the after landing check. Like the cavalry's on its way. Like we couldn't even taxi off the runway because I mean the runway was so small. We didn't know how they were going to get it out of there. But at
That's
that
somebody
point,
else's problem.
it was someone else's problem. And so that's so the first step that you do in our post landing is we've got these pins that safe the ejection seats, so you don't accidentally eject while you're messing around
Yeah,
on
okay,
the ground.
okay.
So I go to reach for my pins, and I realize my hand's kind of doing that a little bit, and I'm like, oh, I wonder how long that's been going on.
But isn't that
As
amazing? Like that's what all that miserable training that you don't know what the point is for, then one day you realize what the point is for. When all
oh,
these people in a horrifically stressful, ambiguous situation just lock in and do their job.
100%, yeah,
That's pretty cool. I remember um, I'm gonna mess up I'm gonna mess up every detail of the story, but it's irrelevant. But in the last few years, there was a civilian aircraft, probably more than one, that got into some trouble. I feel like there was a hole punched in the aircraft or an emergency door came out, like something terrible like that. And the pilot flying it was a female pilot, but she was a former military pilot. And when it happened, all hell's breaking loose on this plane, and they had the recording of her talking to whoever she's talking to. And in the middle of all that chaos, she's just relaying information cool as a cucumber as to what's going to
yeah.
happen. This is the situation that we're in. This is the level of this. This is the level of this. I got this going on. I need your help in this situation. Like in just monotone, professional. And I was like, that's cool. Like there's everything is on fire and she has got it handled, which is really cool.
And I mean, that's the type of person that you want next to you when it hits the fan, right?
Right. Right. Not somebody screaming bloody murder. It doesn't help the situation. Uh,
Yeah.
well, I guess I guess my final question for you before I let you get back on with the rest of your day is why Linchpin?
So I think it started back in COVID. So at the time, we were doing. I was in Omaha on the E4. The Doomsday plane is stationed in Omaha at Offutt Air Force Base, and so that is the home of CrossFit Omaha, owned by Dustin and
Okay.
Stacy Tovar.
Yeah, yeah.
I know you know who they are. And so the very first time I walked into that gym, Stacy was getting ready for, I think, her second to last appearance at the games, and she
Okay.
was. I had kind of walked in and said, "Hey, I heard about this CFO place," and I was still relatively new to CrossFit at the time. This was like in 2017, and was just kind of looking for some place to go. And then like Stacy sat down and talked to me for about a half an hour, and then toured the
Great
gym.
people. Yeah.
And I was looking at her, and I'm just like, you're Stacy Tovar, right? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, you're getting ready to go to the games. Like, don't you have someone to be doing this? And she's like, this is what I do. Like,
That's
this is
cool.
what means. And so, and that's a Tovars, and that's what they're like, man. And that's kind of like in the mentality. And I know it exists in other different types of exercise regimens, but I don't think I've ever seen it more than in CrossFit, where you just if you find the right affiliate, especially like
Hmm.
they care about is helping you live a higher quality of life through fitness, and they get to know you, and they get and they help you out, and they cheer for your successes. And everyone who comes into that gym, it doesn't matter who you voted for, who you worship, who you love, or who you spend your time with. Like, the only thing that people inside those walls care about is like, how can we make your life better through fitness and health? And I fell in love with that mentality, and the Tovars just exude that, right? And so like I was working out there, COVID hit, and we started kind of procuring more garage stuff. I
Hmm.
had luckily started to procure some things before you couldn't buy anything
Right.
during that whole lockdown. We had gotten a C2 rower and just a couple of other things, and some dumbbells and some things that let us uh, continue to work out like during COVID. And so post COVID, we started kind of adding more to the garage gym. When I retired from the Air Force and we moved out to Utah, I just didn't know if I was going to find someplace else like CFO. And so we wanted to find someplace in the garage. And so I used CFO programming like out of the garage, which was highly effective.
Hmm.
But there were some times where I had to really get creative with how I modified it. depending on what was going on. And we've since added more equipment to my favorite room in the house, which is the garage gym now. And it was I was familiar with you and your programming, but I obviously didn't know a lot about it. Like I thought, like it was a straight up brick and mortar affiliate,
Gotcha. Sure. Yeah.
and I started learning a little bit more about it. Like I had a buddy who used to do street parking, and he was just like, "Hey, Pat Sherwood does this thing, and it's literally built for you to do out of your garage, and all these different options." And so I started looking it up. I did like your little trial thing, and just found that it was perfect. Like anyone who's watched the sport of CrossFit over the past 5 years, 10 years, or whatever, has seen you on TV and knows who you are.
Mm,
Um, and so obviously that helps, branding wise. But
sure. Yeah.
but like past like branding will only take you so far.
True. Very true.
Like once you start getting down to the nit and gritty,
It
you do
has
the
to actually
programming,
work.
yeah, it has to work. Exactly, it has to work. And so I just immediately found that it's for me and my schedule. It provides not only the focus but the flexibility that I need. We have pretty much everything we need in the garage to do whatever the RX workout is for that day. I often lack the capability to do
Amen. Right there. Hey, right there with you. Yeah.
yeah. Um, but it's very useful. And then your limited equipment options and your no equipment options. And there's still some times where I'll have to modify that to like a hotel gym type
Sure. Yeah.
atmosphere. But it helps. Like it gives like those days where you're just like, oh man, like I'm exhausted, but like I really need to hit the gym. And then I see some of the other pilots, like sometimes at the op center, that maybe have never seen the inside of a hotel gym, and I'm like, I can't do that.
Right.
Plus, I've got chronic disease and obesity related illnesses that run in my family, and I can't like I have to be very careful, and not kind of like pass up the cake more
Yep.
times than I don't,
Yep.
but also hit the gym more times than I decide to skip it. What Linchpin does for me is uh, it gives me enough to do what I need to do to live a higher quality of life through fitness. Um, but it's not too much where like I'm not injuring myself. The
Mm.
whole scaling
Hmm.
is cool thing. I'm just like, oh, I'm on board with that. Uh, I turned 50 this year, and I don't move like I used to. I just I'll step into a gym sometimes and do a drop in from
Hmm.
time to time, and I have found that like I could feel good about myself and keep up with these 20 somethings maybe during a WOD, but then I cannot recover like they can.
Sure. Yeah. It's hey, Father Time is undefeated.
It's 100%. And so I think like Linchpin gives me not only the flexibility and the focus that I need, but also just the ability to adapt like to where I am, not just in fitness but in life.
That,
And I just keep having to remind myself, I'm like, all right, I'm not competing for the games, I'm not competing for the Olympics. I still declare myself eligible for the NFL draft every year. I've yet
there
to
you
get a
go.
call. I'm starting to
There you
lose
go.
faith on that. Uh, but otherwise, like I'm doing this so that I could live a higher quality of life. So that when like my friend wants to go out for a 3 hour bike ride, up the mountain, like I
Hmm.
could do that.
I,
Uh,
I think
and this linchpin has provided. I think that.
well, that's the whole goal. Well, Scott, man, I appreciate you sharing your story. I find the aviation stuff absolutely fascinating. Lynchpin is full of really, really interesting people like yourselves from all around the world. It's one of the best parts of my week when I get to chat with all of you and learn about the people in the community. I'm honored to be there working out with you. So thank you, my friend. I appreciate you, and yeah, thanks for telling us all about what you've lived through.
Thanks, Pat. I appreciate it. Thanks for what you did, like in uniform, and thanks for what you're doing now. So,
My pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your day.
all right, you too, buddy.